Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. This week we are sitting down with Kevin Burke of Beyond Business. He has quite a resume built up over the last 20 or so years where he's helping companies and brands identify their assets, market it out to different businesses, and ultimately close the deal. We talk about marketing, we talk about fishing, we talk about football, and also what it was like to be a part of the 2019 National Championship football team with LSU. That's right. All of this upcoming in this episode. But before we get to that, I want to give a big, wonderful shout out and thank you to the folks that bring you the show each and every week. Falia Real Estate, Lakeman's Health Center, and you know our apparel is Genteel Apparel. Without further ado, enjoy the show.
They catch a tuna and bring it in.
They should, and honestly, if you brought that up to Brumby, he would be like all about it.
Yeah, I'll be working probably next year, hopefully, to help further that program a little bit more.
Okay.
This year, it's we're just trying to slowly wrap our arms around it and hug it a little bit.
So how long has it been around for?
You know, I'm not really sure. I know at least 8 years, but yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, you could have something really great, but if people don't know about it, you know, it's not going to get much traction. And I think what that program needs is just, you know, some promotion, which is why we're trying to help them a little bit.
Yeah. So it's Catch and Cook, which is, I mean, what is the program?
It's technically called, that program's called Louisiana Catch and Cook.
Okay.
And it sits under the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And essentially, any restaurant in Louisiana can sign up for the program. They have to fill out and get a permit, which I believe is free.
Okay, well, that's a plus.
But they want to make sure that the restaurant understands that they're not going to accept fish that's, you know, 2 weeks old. It needs to be fresh. It needs to be labeled properly by the charter captain, kind of right on what date it was caught, and just to make sure, I think, from a health perspective, that there's no problems there. But yeah, it's just it's not all that known. I think I've grown up doing the Catch and Cook experience for myself. Right. You know, just having fun with it at my own house. But when you can pay somebody to do it, it makes it I don't know, it makes it a little more luxurious, I guess.
Well, and it changes the experience of fishing and then eating the catch altogether. Because, you know, typically if you go to a restaurant, some folks will bring a bottle of wine that they want, they've been saving, and now you can bring that and like your catch.
Absolutely.
And share all this together around someone else's dinner table.
That's right. And not have to clean it up.
Yes.
And yeah, I think, you know, when we dug in with the Louisiana Charter Boat Association and started asking ourselves, how do we attract people to Louisiana to come fish? It was very obvious that we needed to complement that with the culinary side of what the state is known for. And so that's really where Catch and Cook was born, was this idea that we're better together. You know, catching fish and cooking them up, it's just a natural part of what you do. And so really highlighting that for folks from, you know, outside of the state, whether it's Florida. If you catch a fish in Florida and bring it into a restaurant there to have cooked, I can guarantee it's not going to be anything like what we do here in Louisiana. And I think, you know, comparing that was a really eye-opening moment for us. And so then it was a matter of how do we invite other Louisiana experiences into this? And so, you know, other things that we're known for is music. So on our first episode of Louisiana Catch and Cook, we had David St. Romain come along with us. And we wound up having a few Abitas and maybe a little bit of bourbon, and got a little creative and wound up writing a song at the camp, which was really neat.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Catch and Cook is the name of the song, and I'll have to send it to you because David's going to be releasing it as a single here later this month. And so, yeah, I mean, when you think about Louisiana and you think about what we love about it, there's a lot of things that come top of mind. Fishing is certainly one of them. Football, our food, the festivals. And so, you know, what I learned through, you know, trying to, I guess, cultivate business is that people are really attracted and intrigued by these things that we are really good at. And I think that we might not even know how good we're at them. And so putting it on a stage for everybody to see, teaming up with music artists and with food brands, to all kind of collectively say, hey, we are Louisiana, and we want to invite you to come experience this here. It took me moving to Atlanta and living there for 6 years before I realized how unique Louisiana was. And I found myself leaning on the things that we all just take for granted here in terms of conversation. And I think, to stand out a little bit, I was the only one in Atlanta doing crawfish and shrimp boils. They call it low country boils. I realize that's the case because there's a lot less shrimp and there's a lot more vegetables and potatoes and such in their boils than what we would do. So a shrimp boil to us, in the low country boil sense, is essentially still shrimp, but they just have a lot more extras, a lot more extra fixings.
Yeah, you don't need all that accoutrement.
You don't need it. No, a shrimp boil should be primarily shrimp.
Right. You get you several pounds of shrimp and
That's
1
it.
or 2 pounds of vegetables, and that's it.
Yeah.
But they also don't have the luxury to drive to a shrimp boat that just docked
They
and
really
say,
don't.
hey, can I fill my ice chest with your catch?
Yeah.
And then go home that night and boil it.
Yeah. Or in the case of Grand Isle, if you're at the right place at the right time with the cast net, just throw it out yourself.
Yes.
And then, load up an ice chest. And so, it's those experiences that we have. I know from if we're looking at national lists, Louisiana is not always in the top portion of that list when it comes to some of the things that you automatically think of. But when you think of fishing, we're number one, not only in the country, but we're one of the top fishing destinations in the world. When you look at what's offered in Venice, Louisiana, in terms of inshore and offshore saltwater fishing, and then even on the freshwater side at Toledo Bend, we're nationally and known for being a great bass fishery.
The Louisiana side, not the
The Louisiana
Texas
side, yeah, that's right. Yeah. We actually went up fishing there not too long ago, and it's interesting. We have a reciprocatory agreement with Texas in terms of how that's managed. Whether you've launched on the Louisiana side or the Texas side, we kind of work together on that. So, yeah.
So how did you get involved with this catch and cook
program?
I mean, because this is the first I've ever heard of it.
Yeah. So, how did I get involved with it? I don't know. How far back do you want to go? Because I didn't start off with fishing like being a focus in terms of the work that I was doing.
Yeah. Started off at LSU as a marketing intern, right?
I did, yeah. Actually, if you want to rewind just a little bit, 2 years prior to that, I actually was an LSU cheerleader.
Okay.
And so being an LSU cheerleader, being around a lot of the big games was exhilarating. I dislocated my shoulder 2 years into it, so got my Letterman's jacket, got to be a part of the L Club, which is really awesome, by the way. I don't know if you've ever looked into that, but it's
I've been before.
It's got some great perks to it.
Yeah.
And so wanted to stay around that environment, and so that led to an opportunity to intern with LSU athletics in the marketing department, which was a lot of hours, and so never really got to tailgate during the time I was a cheerleader to the time that I graduated, because I was either on the field as a cheering on the Tigers or working in some sort of marketing and promotion sense. And so, that really kind of pushed me down this path of sports marketing. And so had an opportunity from there to go work for the New Orleans Hornets. And I said that right.
Yep.
There might be some people who are listening to the show that are like, who the heck are the New Orleans Hornets, right? But that's obviously how they came and arrived here in the state. And so was a part of the efforts to launch that NBA team, and specifically worked with them in the sponsorship capacity on the client services side, which is where I got my start.
How do you jump as an intern at LSU straight to working for an NBA team? So
I would say a lot of it has to do with the experience that I was provided through LSU athletics as an intern. A lot of candidates for that position were coming out of college with a great degree in mass communications or maybe sports administration, but I don't know that anybody had the amount of experience that I had. So I mentioned it was a lot of hours. I missed a lot of tailgates, but those were sacrifices made that allowed me and afforded me to walk into an NBA team and get an actual position. First full-time job in sports is most difficult to get. So it's a lot of internship opportunities, assistantships, but landing that first full-time gig was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, carrying the weight of those 3 letters kind of also helps.
Yeah,
You know?
LSU, when applied to sports specifically, right, and marketing, and certainly they do it right, and they're world known. They're world class and well known for what they do, and so that helped. Also helped some of the contacts that I made through LSU athletics as an intern, translated into some referrals and references that I was able to get for that position.
Yeah.
But that was a great one. I mean, I don't know that I would have ever left the New Orleans Hornets. They were owned by the Shin family. It was an amazing environment inside that organization. And then a little thing called Katrina wound up happening while I was working there. Team went to Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to stay back. And during the evacuation for Katrina, I was actually invited to come to LSU, and actually had my mom with me because she was living in New Orleans at the time, and we're all just here. And I wound up getting, having a visit with some of the folks from athletics, and they asked if I'd be interested in coming back to LSU. And I'm literally in my shorts and like a T-shirt, just thought I was stopping in to say hey and say, we're
Right.
here for a little while. And it turned into an opportunity to stay and really kind of continue to develop my career with LSU here in Baton Rouge. And so that lasted about 2 years. We had an amazing experience on the sponsorship side. It was the first time LSU had outsourced their marketing rights. And so we were responsible for doubling the sponsorship revenue, more than doubling the sponsorship revenue within the first year that we were there. So lots of late nights, lots of hustle. But I was very new in my career and very young and willing to put in the late nights and long hours to get it done. And yeah, those 2 years of full-time sales experience transpired and led to an opportunity with the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know that many of your listeners like that name.
Hang on, I didn't know he was part of the Falcons. Jay, you didn't tell me we had a Falconite in here.
They paid the bills for a minute, 2 years.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a fun experience. So
how did that transition go from LSU to the Falcons?
So first thing, I remember sharing some of the news with some of my sponsors at the time at LSU, and I got some very strong feedback on my decision.
How many bridges were burned?
I don't know that they were burned, but there were literally some curse words dropped on it. That's how popular my decision was. My mother also told me that my grandfather was turning over in his grave based on the decision that I had just made.
Yeah. Did she disown you as well along the way?
She did, and I brought her on the sidelines. Unfortunately, the game I brought her to, was a Saints-Falcons game.
Oh, no.
And the Saints lost.
Please tell me she was at least in Saints garb on the sidelines.
She wore black. She wore black.
That's
yeah.
I'm here because I have to support my son, but I'm also here to support my hometown.
And that was a really weird night because after a win, your team wants to go out and have a celebratory drink.
Of course.
My parents were with me, and so I remember getting in the car, leaving the Georgia Dome, and saying, "Hey, Mom, you cool coming with us to go grab a drink, celebrate the win?" And she just looked at me and she didn't say a word, but I knew what the answer was. So I didn't celebrate with the team that night. So we drove back home, and it was a very, very quiet ride up 75 to Swanee, Georgia.
Welcome to the brand new Falaya mobile app. We took all the same tech that's helped hundreds of people sell their homes themselves and packed it into an easy-to-use app for your phone. When you download the Falaya mobile app on either the Apple or Android App Store, you'll immediately be able to see the power of this game-changing tool. From the seller's dashboard, you can navigate to all the information that you need. We intentionally separated everything into key groups, such as tasks to be completed, buyer leads for your listing, and contact information for everyone involved through closing. When you get an offer on your property, you can simply review and respond all within the app. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to monitor everything that's going on with your property from listed to sold. It's truly the power of Falaya in the palm of your hand. Download the app and see for yourself. Falaya, it's real estate reimagined.
But I had a great time there. You know, Matt Ryan was first brought onto the team there. A lot of the trips that we took sponsors on were top notch in terms of the hospitality. You're flying with the team. You're on the buses with the police escorts to the hotel, to the stadium. It's really, really top notch. But one of the things I remember is valued that Matt Ryan was, right, on being a franchise quarterback pick for the Falcons. They still very much treated him like a rookie his rookie year. And so the rookies couldn't ride the bus with the team. They had to go catch a ride with the folks slumming it on bus 2 or 3, which is where I was with the sponsors. And so I did find myself having Matt Ryan sitting next to me on one of the trips. And so he's a super nice guy. And just really, you know, working in sports, being able to have those sort of experiences was really special. You know, it's something that I think keeps you wanting to be around that industry.
Yeah, I mean, even though it was for the Falcons.
Yeah, I know.
So when did you decide to return home?
So after working in the NFL, I recognized that I wasn't as passionate about pro sports as I was college sports. In terms of selling it, right? Like when you sell NFL properties, it's about making a billionaire owner more money.
Right.
When you sell college, it's about supporting your home team. It's about, you know, helping your college to build better facilities, do better recruiting. You just kind of feel more part of the success. And so
it's more widespread for who you're trying to serve and who you're trying to help find success.
That's right. And so I left the Falcons and started working with a regional sports television network called Comcast Sports Southeast, where I was the general manager of that station. They distributed over 13 states, and one of our partners was Cox Communications here in Louisiana. So a lot of the games that we produced would show up on Cox Communications here. And yeah, that was kind of where I got back involved in the mix with college. They had just started broadcasting live SEC football games. The way I like to talk about CSS is it was the SEC network before the SEC network was created. And so that was a lot of fun, 3 years of building that property. Once again, you know, digging in revenue generation, increasing sponsorship. We were able to grow that property by 450%. Over the course of 2 years. And it was really a lot of fun. I learned that when working for a television property, you didn't have to work every game. When working for a team, you had to be at every game. And so it was a lot more friendly when it came to the family dynamics, and I just had my daughter, Hannah. Mm-hmm. And so it was really a great 3 years. Let me take that back. It was a great 2 years. The first year was very trying. And, you know, in sponsorship and in sales, often you're judged on the results of your efforts. And that property in particular took about 6 to 8 months before I closed the first sponsorship. And that was difficult. Let's just put it that way.
So, I mean, what are you selling on them? How are the conversations going at that time? Because it's just getting started. Don't have much of a product. I mean, you have a product.
We have a product.
What are the results?
That property in particular was known for re-airs of college football games. Do you remember when that was popular? Mm-hmm. Like you'd as a fan, you'd probably go to an LSU game. You'd have too much fun. You can't remember the plays.
Right.
So the next morning you wake up and you're like, what happened again? And so, yes, that's where Comcast Sports Southeast got their start. But then they landed this deal through ESPN for the live rights, and that's really what kind of really carried the television network. It went from, maybe local sponsors in the Georgia area to opportunities with Regions Bank, Ram Trucks, Sprint, which was a wireless carrier back before, they I think merged with T-Mobile. And really just big national brands wanting to get a piece of this, live college football action, which really benefited a lot of the other programming that was on the show. And we started doing original programming, SEC hoops tonight, SEC football, talking football. It led to all these, ancillary shows that were created really because of the live SEC broadcast that we had. But that was fun. Atlanta was fun. You asked me how I wound up back in Louisiana, I think, and it's taken me a little bit to get there. But we had our daughter Hannah. I guess my mom comes back into this again. She had made it very well known that she didn't like the fact that she was only getting to see her granddaughter 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit down and my wife and I had to think about what we wanted to prioritize. Was it going to be our career? Or was it going to be our family? And so the more we thought about it and prayed about it, we recognized that we were both from families where we were raised with our grandparents around and very much a part of our lives. And we wanted to have that for our kids as well. And so I had a position where I was able to move back to Louisiana, but my wife actually led the charge in getting us home. She accepted a position as an account executive with an agency out of Lafayette called BBR Creative. It stands for Blonde, Brunette, and Redhead. It was 3 women who started the agency 27 years ago now.
Wow.
And I'm happy to say that was really a great move for us because she is now the CEO of BBR, almost a year into that role.
That's incredible.
And it's we moved back actually to Lafayette, lived there for 2 years, and then we wound up getting a phone call. I got a phone call from LSU again, saying, "Hey, we know you're back in Louisiana. What do we have to do to get you back on our team?" Which was flattering. And so I got called in. They said, "Look, you may be settled in Lafayette. You may not be interested in coming back to LSU, but just come meet with us. You'll have an offer by the time you leave." And how can you not? Like, that just, doesn't that make you so curious? Like, what is it going to be? And is it better than what I have now? And
it's your third stint too, right?
Your
third potential stint at LSU, which I'm hoping you wore more than shorts and a T-shirt too.
I did. I actually wore probably something like this. But I remember they, of course, like true LSU recruiting style, just a quick walk through the tunnel,
of course,
out into the football field. And it's just, it's so captivating that how can you not see yourself coming back? And so fun conversation with my wife, right, who decided that she was going to take this position in Lafayette. Great opportunity with LSU as a director, which eventually led to general sales manager for all the sponsorship opportunities. And saying, "Hey, I think I want to take this." And she's like, "Okay," gave the notice to her company, thinking they may not like that, right? Lafayette-based agency may not go for, her moving to Baton Rouge, but they were 100% on board. They said, "We've always wanted to open a Baton Rouge office." And so they wound up allowing her to open that Baton Rouge office. And like I said, she's now CEO of the company, so she's done something right.
It worked out for y'all.
It did.
So in what year was this that you made the transition from Lafayette?
2015.
Okay. So pre when virtual workspace, virtual meetings were a thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of, that's why I think if somebody were to say that today, it'd be like, yeah, no brainer.
Right. So much easier.
In 2015, it was like, not a lot of employers wanted to have somebody off kind of in a satellite office necessarily.
Yeah.
They,
Having to
sometimes,
Skype them.
Yeah, sometimes, Skype. Yeah, we have Skype meetings. Is that even still around?
I think it was migrated in with Microsoft or something.
Somebody bought somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was basically us coming back to Baton Rouge. Emily and I both met in at LSU last semester of our senior year. We were in advertising classes together. We were both in the student ad fed. I actually won a scholarship from ad fed as a student. It was $1,000, and I will credit that for the reason I have my wife today, because
Did you market to winner or something? Like,
no, I spent the full $1,000 on crawfish and beer the last semester of LSU. And I'm sure there's other recipients of this scholarship who said that they've, maybe they purchased a computer or put it towards grad school. But I 100% spent every penny on crawfish and beer and invited her to have crawfish and beer just about every weekend until that $1,000 was out.
Oh, so it wasn't just a one-time thing.
No,
this was
it was.
Okay. So this was like your courtship with her.
Yeah,
was based on this $1,000 scholarship.
that's it.
With nothing but crawfish and beer.
Crawfish and beer.
And if that doesn't scream Louisiana, or
Maybe that's why my favorite season is crawfish season. My favorite holiday season.
yeah, it brings back you those times when you were trying to win your
it.
wife over.
Yeah, and so we're here back in Baton Rouge. I have an amazing run with LSU athletics again from 2015 through 2020.
Okay,
got a chance to experience the national championship from the team side, which was just, it does not get any better than that.
What was, because that was the year after I graduated, so I was there Joe Burrow's first year at LSU.
Okay,
when he was just figuring out his footing.
right.
And then that's when I graduated, and so 2019 was the year. Obviously, you've got that big rock on your hand.
Yeah, I never know when to wear it. I figured,
Now's
if I'm going to be on
appropriate.
camera,
Right.
might as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that over there.
Yeah, he can add some sparkle.
Yeah, we'll
after.
put some
put some
sparkle in
after
there.
effect in there.
Yeah, it's
So what was it like that year? What were the conversations being had that obviously created one of the best football teams we've seen?
yeah. I mean, when you say conversations being had, I think what comes to mind is the mantra of the team, and what Coach O had always said: this, one team, one heartbeat. Go Tigers. Like it was Louisiana on display for all to see, and I just was so bought into that, because that's essentially what I do now, which we'll talk about in a second. But like having a Louisiana person represent LSU on a national stage and just say, yeah, we're different. We've got a different accent. We eat different food, but we're collectively all together in this pursuit towards excellence. And really, that mantra kind of spread beyond just the football team, and we were all bought in, right? So this idea of collaboration and working together, and extended to the sponsors, and I would say conversations at that time internally were very optimistic. I remember the Alabama game being probably the biggest test in terms of are we going to get past them, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, that year, that was my favorite game. It wasn't the national championship. It was LSU Alabama, which I had the fortune of being able to attend, and I was in the radio broadcast booth for that. And so watching that game, I remember Donald Trump was actually in attendance at that game. And so there was a lot of security, a lot of people, a lot of hype. And to see us, pull past Alabama, I might have taken advantage of my credentials and gone on the field after the game. I might have gotten a picture right next to Joe Burrow as he's being hoisted up off the field. It actually became the front page of the New York Post. And so you can see me in the background, this little speck.
Allegedly.
I've got it framed and autographed in my office, so you can come by and see it anytime. But no, it was amazing to get past that. I remember standing next to Coach O as he was in the end zone giving the interview, and I want to say he was crying. But that was the feeling. And then we all get on the plane, we fly back home to Baton Rouge, and as we're touching down in Baton Rouge, we're looking out the window, and there's this huge glow that is just, at the edge of the runway. And I didn't understand what it was when I first looked at it. And then we landed, and the door comes open, and all of a sudden I just hear this I mean, I don't know if you remember it, but the
I
fans,
remember, and I've literally got chills from thinking back on it.
the fans showed up.
Oh yeah,
in full force, and those lights that I saw were the light of their cameras, and walking on the runway, following Coach O, following Joe as they went and gave everybody high fives across the fence was really memorable.
Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you.
And so, yeah, that was an amazing experience. Obviously led to Joe Burrow and his run for the Heisman. Was very fortunate and blessed to be able to attend that ceremony with a couple of our top-level sponsors. So I got to be in the room when that happened. And yeah, I mean, 2019, one thing after the next. The only thing that I don't like about that season is what happened next.
Okay.
Which was COVID. So we went from this exhilarating ride of a lifetime to basically a screeching halt when we're told we might not be able to have people inside the stadium, for next football season.
That was.
And I remember it was around basketball season when I want to say they started grounding some of the planes and saying, no, we're not going to this tournament. It might have been the SEC basketball tournament. And I remember thinking, okay, this is serious. And what the public doesn't recognize is that when you have that halt in action, it really affects the sports property's ability to deliver on what the sponsors are paying for. Mm-hmm. So when you don't have a game that's advertising, that doesn't happen.
Right. When
you don't have people in the stadium, or if it's limited to 25%, then the sponsors have a right to ask, do I only have to pay 25% of my sponsorship fee?
Yeah.
And so then that translates into potential loss of revenue, and now we're talking mitigation, and, okay, we can't deliver that this year, but what about we give you something next year? And it just really changed the dynamics of, and it really zapped a lot of the fun out of it.
Well, so. It took away from that enjoyment, that hospitality element of sports, and kind of made everybody second guess, what are we doing here?
Right.
But then also valuing, we really need this now.
Yeah. We
really need this piece of our life to get through the next however many months that it ultimately was.
Right.
When they were having cardboard cutouts of people in the stands.
Remember that?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time.
Yeah, it was.
In sports.
Yeah.
So then you're like, let's market cardboard
would you
cutouts.
like to buy a cardboard cutout of yourself to stick in the stadium? I mean, we were doing that. I mean, they were doing all kind of crazy things to try to, just try to get through that time. And it was interesting. I think, what you recognize when something goes away is how much you miss it.
Yeah.
And I would say more than the game itself, the cultural experience of what happens on LSU's campus around the game, to me, is really the gold in what I used to sell with LSU athletics. Wins and losses, it's not something that you want to tout as a sponsorship sales executive, because you always have that risk of losing. And if your sponsors are valuing their relationship based on how many wins and losses you have, you put yourself in a tough spot. But one of the things that I've always appreciated about LSU is, and what we have in Louisiana, is tailgating is essentially Louisiana culture on display.
Yeah.
For everyone to see. We just need a good reason to get together. And so, having sold sponsorships for LSU athletics and having been at the height of what I would say LSU's success was, I in 2020 decided that I was going to step away from being employed by someone else and try to start my own thing. And so I really focused on that idea that, LSU is really Louisiana culture on display, and I started to think about what are some other assets that are unique to Louisiana that need to be developed a little bit more, that can really tap into some of that same passion. And the first thing that came to mind to me was fishing. The tailgate experience on campus on a game day is very much like the experience that you have at a fishing camp when you go with some of your friends and family, right? There's certainly usually a game on,
right?
If it's football season, you're cooking, right? And really, I think if we think about our culture, sharing that culinary experience is, to me, one of the more unique aspects of Louisiana that happens on a game day. The same thing happens on a fishing trip,
right?
And so I started digging into ways to develop sponsorships around fishing, which is really kind of weird, right? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Sportsman's Paradise channel,
yeah,
that does fishing on Saturday and Sunday mornings,
right? And then
that's
you've got
their dedicated programming.
You've got maybe a guy who does a fishing show here. You've got CCA, which is represents the recreational fishermen.
You've got rodeos around,
yeah, one-off events. But I wound up coming across this gentleman by the name of Richard Fisher, who was the executive director for the Louisiana Charter Boat Association.
Okay.
And that's when I really my wheels started turning. I thought to myself, I don't know that I like fishing as much as I like charter fishing. Because I go back to those memories of my dad, right? And we go take the boat out. But, something always breaks. And then, you get back and you have to clean the fish yourself. And then you get back home and you have to wash the boat. And he was pretty meticulous. I mean, like 2 hours.
Oh, that's fond memories of that.
So how can I have all the fun and not have to do any of the work? The answer was pretty clear: a charter fishing trip, right?
Right.
And so then I started to kind of look into the association, and for them, I've developed their corporate partnership program. And so first went in, kind of started digging through what are some of the assets that you have today. Okay, you have an email that you send out. Okay, you have a social media account for Facebook and Instagram, maybe some YouTube. You've got this annual meeting where all the charter captains come together. So we started to basically outline and really capture all of those assets, and then we decided to create some of our own. And so we started hosting regional meetings. So we do 10 regional meetings, and then we do one annual meeting, which gave us more touch points with the charter captains for B2B marketing.
Right.
And then we also launched a television show called Louisiana Catch and Cook, which was really an effort to reach people outside of the state and, just like LSU tailgating, share one of the things that we're great at. And that is the combination of that catching and that culinary aspect of what Louisiana is known for. And so we're in season 2 of Louisiana Catch and Cook. Season 1 was really a pilot, just to kind of, proof of concept. 4 episodes this year. We've got Grand Isle, Cocodrie, Delacroix, and Myrtle Grove. And so, some fun South Louisiana inshore adventures. Each one of the episodes has a special guest. We've got some of Jay's friends from the Food Network who have come on board for an episode. We've got David St. Romain, who actually we wound up writing a song, and he's going to release that single. I'll have to share it with you. I don't know if we'll be able to play it for everybody.
Yeah,
but,
well, we can maybe use it as the intro music to,
I like
the
that.
show.
Yeah.
Well, we'll drop ours and we'll add his in.
It's the theme music for Louisiana Catch and Cook, and I know he'd appreciate having a little more play on it too. But it was something that Jay and him kind of collaborated on, and it was really just a fun result of that camaraderie that happens at the camp.
Right. This episode of the Patty G Show is sponsored by Genteel Apparel. Genteel Apparel is our newest clothing outfitter. We've got a great partnership with them. Head on over to the website, pattygshow.com/sponsors to learn a little bit more about them, and there's a little treat there for you when you get there. Again, this episode is brought to you by Genteel Apparel.
And so, yeah, so that's one of the projects that I'm working on with the Louisiana Charter Boat Association. They're a client of mine. And then Jefferson Parish Convention and Visitors Bureau is another client of mine. One of the assets that they have that we are continuing to develop for them is the Louisiana Oyster Trail. So when I tell you I've changed,
Oyster Trail.
Yeah, so I went and I had Louisiana football. I've changed that in for food and festivals and fishing. Those clients that I'm working with today are allowing me to really kind of pour into that. Yeah, the Louisiana Oyster Trail.
Well, that's because you burned all the football bridges when you went to Atlanta.
I might have. You know, there's some great LSU athletes that have gone on to have amazing careers with the Falcons.
They have.
Don't give me such a hard time. You know,
somebody's got to.
Chevish Jackson, Todd McClure. I mean, these are guys that had great careers with the Falcons. Why can't you look at me the same way?
Well, you're wearing an LSU championship ring, so
yeah,
we'll look past it all.
I appreciate it.
So anyway, so you trade all that in, and now you're going into this food, this festival, and this fishing, working on the Oyster Trail. What is the Oyster Trail?
So the Louisiana Oyster Trail started after the BP oil spill.
Okay.
And it was developed by the Jefferson Parish Convention and Visitors Bureau because after that spill, people didn't want to really come visit, and the people who visited certainly didn't want to eat what was coming out of the water. And so, obviously, that was a while ago, and things have changed, and now it thrives. But at the time, it was an attempt, once it was healthy and safe to consume the oysters, to really promote that. And so there's about 18 restaurants that make up the Louisiana Oyster Trail across Jefferson Parish. They have to serve Louisiana oysters. That's the main, requirement. And those Louisiana oysters are coming from multiple parishes across South Louisiana. So, from Plaquemines Parish, from St. Bernard Parish, from that Houma area. And so really it's an opportunity for locals and visitors alike to really just get a taste of what Louisiana is known for and really participate in what I would consider to be another cultural experience that we may take for granted,
So is it farm raised or fresh or both?
So we there are some AOC, alternative oyster culture, I think is what it's called. AOC oysters, they're raised in cages that are taking place down in Grand Isle. There's one place in particular that we visited during our Grand Isle episode of Catch and Cook called Topwater Oysters. And so they have 57 miles worth of cages that are out and basically, floating off the bottom to harvest and really kind of, I think the word they're saying here is, I think fishing and farming are the two things, right? So old school oysters are still, I think, from a harvesting standpoint, considered fishing. And when you start to use the seed in these AOC cages, they're starting to call that farming, right? So there's a little bit of an evolution in that industry, which is interesting to see. But yeah, no, the Oyster Trail is there. There's a really cool promotion going on in November called the Taste of the Oyster Trail Challenge.
Okay.
And they actually are going to give anybody who visits 3 or more locations in the Jefferson Parish Visit Jefferson Parish app, you'll get a special gift. And so last year, gift? I think it's going to be the same this year, but last year it was an oyster ornament.
Okay.
And so you hit 3 or more of the Oyster Trails locations, and you'll get one of those mailed to your house. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And so for that one, we've developed a relationship with an official beer of the Louisiana Oyster Trail,
which is
Urban South.
Good choice.
Yep, they're right there, neighboring Jefferson Parish, and so they've come on board and they've invested in that, and really that's I think a good representation of where I'm finding a lot of my passion these days is marrying these Louisiana brands with these Louisiana cultural assets for them to both collectively benefit from. Because when you eat oysters, what is one of the first things that you want alongside of that? salty oyster.
Besides another oyster, a beer.
Yeah, cold beer, right? And then the same thing rings true with the sponsorships that we're developing for the Louisiana Charter Boat Association. When you're out on the water and you're going on a trip first thing in the morning, what is one of the first things you got to have when you wake up?
A Louisiana cup of coffee.
There you go. Look, yeah, I actually brought this for you. I noticed Matt Siraj was on the show a couple, months back.
Yeah,
I don't know. Did he leave you any coffee?
He left us with some community coffee stuff.
Okay. I was
not this bag though.
Yeah. So we start off each one of our trips.
Ooh, the new dark and bold.
Yeah, it is, and that one's pretty intense. It says so on the label.
Yeah, it's the intense blend.
Yeah, and so they're kind of how we start off our show with a nice cup of community coffee before we head on the boat, and then of course once you're on the charter boat, right? What goes hand in hand with fishing? If you're not catching, I usually have a beer in my hand, and sometimes when I am catching, and so Abita actually, and look, I'll give you a little.
Now we got a whole
Abita
bucket.
as well. Yeah, Abita actually came on board as a sponsor. They
absolutely,
their tagline "Culture on Tap."
Culture on tap
is what I feel is representative of the show that we put on, right? So we are with Catch and Cook putting Louisiana culture on tap for everybody to see, and we've been having a heck of a lot of fun with it.
And I love the marrying of Louisiana brands and how you're able to do so much within the state that you don't have to look beyond to make these relationships and these partnerships happen.
Yeah, certainly looking for other brands who want to really align with some of these cultural assets that make them unique across the country. And I think that's what we're doing a good job of with the show in particular. Is this is a national television show available on Waypoint TV.
Okay.
Mossy Oak is the presenting sponsor of the show, so they have exclusive rights to distribute it on their Mossy Oak YouTube channel.
Got it.
And so we've got national exposure, and really, what better way to show how authentic you are as a Louisiana brand than to pour into some of these cultural assets that are unique to us. And so, as a Louisiana brand, you don't really have to go pretend like you're someone else when you go to another state. I think, whether you're a seasoning company or a beer or coffee, this idea of marketing is, we're Louisiana brand. We're in your state, and we'd like to invite you into this Louisiana experience, right? It helps you stand out more than anything. I think that you could manufacture yourself.
Yeah, and we have unique items to offer. We have unique experiences to offer that you can't get anywhere else. We're Sportsman's Paradise.
That's it.
And we have to do what we can to promote that to attract people here.
Yeah. No, it's Sportsman's Paradise, but also the festival scene, like you said, or like I said earlier, is strong. Jefferson Parish has a few festivals under their belt that are being leveraged, is a way for brands to align with Mardi Gras. They do a Family Gras celebration, and so that's another cultural asset that I feel like is unique to Louisiana that we should be helping to leverage with sponsors, trying to identify sponsors who want to align with that. So whether it's Mardi Gras, whether it's fishing, whether it's some of the tailgate scene that we have from a cooking perspective, I feel like Louisiana brands don't have to look far or try too hard to be different. We already are. and that should make you stand out.
Yeah.
Right?
And you should be proud of that too. Like we have so much that we're different in how we do things, how we cook things, what things we eat, and what things people don't eat necessarily outside of here, that we just need to be who we are and just show that off.
That's right.
We don't need to figure out how can we adapt to so and so. It's how can we welcome whoever wants to come and be a part of our differentness.
That's right. Yeah.
So you said some festivals. What festivals are you involved in?
Yeah, so Jefferson Parish puts on, I want to say there's probably a dozen festivals that take place across the parish, from Family Gras, which is a Mardi Gras festival that occurs at the corner of music and Mardi Gras, as I like to say. They've got live acts that'll perform right there outside of Lakeside Mall on Veterans Highway. And then at the conclusion of that concert, literally a parade is rolling right by.
Wow.
And so that's a 3-day festival that takes place a couple weeks before Mardi Gras. About 60,000 people attend over the course of those 3 days. And so that's one. They also do another called Uncle Sam Jam. That is a 4th of July festival, fireworks show at Lafayette Park. But then they've got, others further south down in Grand Isle. Swole Fest is a fishing rodeo, charity fishing rodeo that's within Jefferson Parish. And so
I've had Nick Rauber on the show a couple years ago, actually.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He got me involved in that, I guess over 10 years ago, and it's just a lot of fun. And so, yeah, that sits right there in Jefferson Parish, and we're helping to develop and cultivate sponsors for really the parish to help support some of these festivals across the area. I didn't realize that Jefferson Parish was the largest parish in the state of Louisiana, and I grew up there. It is about 500,000 people within the parish. It's also the second largest tourism economy in the state. And
second to whom?
New Orleans.
Okay, that's fair.
And I think in part it's because you have to drive through Jefferson Parish when you land at the New Orleans airport,
right,
to actually get to New Orleans. And so, it's kind of interesting, but certainly an advantage to being located there.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that they were so big from a population standpoint.
Yeah, I didn't either until we started digging into the numbers. And so if you look at the greater New Orleans area, which, Jefferson Parish is the largest part of, there's certainly opportunities there in a nice family-friendly type of environment. And that's part of the value of, I think, the Mardi Gras that Jefferson Parish puts on, is that it's not quite as adventurous as New Orleans, but I think when you're a brand looking to associate with Mardi Gras, that's okay. Right?
Yeah. You can say, come take your little ones here.
Yeah, take your kids to Family Gras. And,
right.
They've done a good job of really developing that family-friendly brand of Mardi Gras.
So are there any other areas that your company itself is working with people, different companies trying to align sponsorships?
Yeah, I would say the 3 areas that Beyond Business is focused on is really, properties themselves. And so I would consider Jefferson Parish CVB to be a property, the Louisiana Charter Boat Association as a property. But then I also represent personalities from endorsement perspective. So Jay Ducote is the host of our fishing show, but I also help to solicit and develop sponsorships for Jay and his brand and the assets that he has available. And then the third is really just brand specific. So one of the brands that I work for is a bourbon brand by the name of Ragged Branch. And so I help and consult with them on sponsorships and help them to negotiate sponsorships. When you know how the sausage is made, having been on the sales side of it, it sometimes is helpful in being able to find some favorable deals. And so those are the 3 areas that I focus on. I do think that I know that I've had an ear to the ground and an eye towards NIL, kind of within that personality bucket.
Right.
There's been some music artists that have reached out, which is interesting, right? Year 4 of going into this business, I'm starting to have people reach out to me, which is amazing. First 2 years was very much you reaching out and trying to find
and getting the nose.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, year 4, as I'm heading into year 4, people are calling like, hey, do you think you could do this for us? And it's been refreshing. But yeah, I do think that I could see myself leaning into NIL a little bit, especially with my sports background. And then, the sponsorship cultivation that I've done for other personalities. But I don't know. It's just been, I don't know that it's really shown, and from my perspective, enough potential for me to really dive into it that deeply.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the Wild West, I feel
It's totally the Wild West. And I'll say that I think, the top-level athletes certainly are going to have no problem getting those deals. It's the second and third-tier athletes that are the ones that I feel like need the most help. But how do, as a business, how do you make money off of it, right? In a way that is fair and scalable.
And you've got some companies that were founded here that are starting to do that, such as like walk-ons.
Right.
Right? They're going and giving scholarships to walk-on athletes
Right.
across the country where their stores are located, and they're figuring out that aligns with us. And so we're able to help those lower-tiered athletes that don't have all the big press and publicity like the Livy Dunns of the world, and figure out how does that relate to our brand and how can we push them out.
Yeah, because they're looking for walk-ons, right? Because
Right.
that's what made their brand, and that's a great strategy. And I would say it's probably a cost-effective one too, right? They don't have to go stroke big checks across the board to get big stars.
Yeah, you can get 5 or 6 athletes for the cost of one athlete.
That's it.
That's at the top.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
so now
and it
you're
aligns
impacting
with-
more lives.
Yep, and it aligns with the purpose of your brand and your brand promise. And I think it's been very clever. I also have seen what they've done, what Walk-Ons has done with the I guess it would have been the Reese's Senior Bowl in a similar fashion. Really, kind of trying to award some of those players that have that walk-on mentality.
Yeah, so it's a fun landscape to see. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I still have a toe in the water when it comes to some of the sports-specific opportunities. I'm doing some work with some of the ESPN events and bowl games across the country right now. Texas Bowl, Hawaii Bowl, Boca Raton Bowl, Birmingham Bowl, all properties that are looking for new title sponsors at this point. And yeah, it's been fun to continue to have just some sort of line in the water with the sports experience that I've had.
Yeah, just enough to stay interested, not to be fully committed,
Yeah, sports marketing and sponsorship sales was my life for 20 years. And so being able to pivot and just go in a little bit different direction has been refreshing.
Yeah.
I think you do anything long enough, it has a tendency to wear you out, as fun as it is.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's been the ESPN stuff's been fun. And really, just kind of looking with an eye towards how to scale what I'm up to, and really thinking through now, do I need to add some bodies to the business in order to scale? So that's kind of where I'm at, and I guess in the evolution of Beyond Business.
You're at a path in which you don't know where to go, but I mean the bodies are the next evolutionary step.
I think so. But
It's
with
just
my
hard
wife,
to replicate it.
That's right. And then I often kind of vacillate between this idea of, do I want to grow a big business, or do I want to enjoy the flexibility that I have with what I have today? And I bounce back and forth between that. There's a part of me that wants to just go grab it all,
Right.
and then there's another part of me that's like, you know what? My wife is the CEO of BBR. She's got a lot of focus that she needs to be putting in, into that business. That'll benefit me too. So, maybe I hang back a little bit. Maybe I be more flexible for the sake of our family. And when I sit down and I pray about it and I'm quiet and I really think on it, I feel like that's the right answer. But it's not the macho man answer that I want to give. I want to give the whole, I'm going to conquer the world, I'm going to go grab more business and we're going to make lots of money. But then I think having chased that at a few different properties that I've been at, you realize how unsatisfying it is when you get there, and it's never enough.
There's never enough, and if you're not in love with the chase, as soon as you get there, it's that saying of, it's like if a dog ever catches the car, it doesn't know what it's going to do with it. It just has been chasing it and chasing it and chasing it.
That's it.
And so if you are constantly finding new things to chase, then you can keep it fresh. But if you find something where, a national title, you get there, great.
It's kind of
what do we do from here?
Yeah, and then you start to think deeper of what am I really trying to satisfy?
Yeah.
Security, right? And really, at the end of the day, I think when I start to dig back at the layers of what I'm really searching for, it's love, it's peace, it's kindness, it's patience, it's the things that I've found that can only be attained through having a strong faith, right? And really, it's tempting to switch out of that mindset like multiple times a day.
Just a continuous light switch.
It is. There's a lot of distractions, and there's always that shiny thing that you can go chase, that you think will provide that level of satisfaction or happiness. But I think at the end of the day, I'm learning that I'm searching for joy over happiness, and that's really a mindset that only comes through having a solid relationship with Christ and just a firm foundation and faith.
Yeah.
But yeah, the world's got a ton of things out there that are shiny that distract me from that often, especially in the business world, right?
Oh, of course.
I could see a scenario where I went down a path with NIL, but when I think about NIL, I would want to make sure that I'm doing it for the right reason, not necessarily for the money, right? But there's these student athletes who, I think a lot of them aren't going to go pro. They have this unique opportunity right now while they're in college and the light's on them to not just make endorsement money, but to develop relationships with people who will pay attention to them for this very short period of time. So instead of making it all about an endorsement deal, what if it was just someone who wanted to get introduced to a business? Yeah, look, the endorsement side of it is something that the student athlete can lend to the equation, but let me be an intern within your organization, right? Let's leverage this little bit of popularity that I have right now to develop relationships, get some real life experience, and maybe turn that into something.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think we should be thinking about on NIL beyond just the endorsement, is using it as a way to connect with those brands.
Right.
Or maybe even launch a product,
Yeah, and even on the connecting with the brands, if they don't have a big NIL structure to their organization yet, you're their first athlete. Now you have the ability to leverage it and say, it worked for me. Here's what we did for the organization.
Right.
Let me come work for you and run that division, or maybe work with somebody to flesh it out so we can then find other athletes and recreate this.
That's right.
I like it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Lots of shiny things. I don't know who's selling sponsorships for your podcast here, man. Maybe that's something I need to dig into.
I know. We might have to have a conversation after the show's over. But before we get you out of here, we do have a set list of questions we ask every guest.
Right. Uh-oh.
They're very hard-hitting questions,
Okay.
very deep thought.
All right.
What is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
Something I did as a kid that I wish I could still do today. Well, I attempt this occasionally, but I wouldn't say that I do it regularly. But but diving. I was on a diving team as a kid.
Diving team?
Yeah. So
we blew right past that. That should have been the opening line.
Maybe so. 1 meter springboard. There's some things that I pulled off back then that I wouldn't dare attempt today. And then having that cheerleading experience, there's always this desire to pull a backflip, and the only time that I really get the urge to do that is when I take my son Colin and my daughter Hannah to like Sky Zone.
Can you still do one?
I can on a trampoline, yes.
On a trampoline,
not a standing back tuck anymore.
I was about to say, if you could do a standing back tuck, that's the cover photo.
Maybe that's
you're upside down, and we snap that shot.
But that would be something that I wish I could still do. Some of those trips, there were flips and tricks that were I don't know, they were a lot of fun.
I like it.
Yeah. What else you got for me?
So you have been all around in sports. Now you're in food. You're in festivals, fishing, outdoors. What are 3 lessons you've learned along the way?
Wow, 3 lessons. One lesson I continue to learn is just because it's important to me doesn't mean it's important to others, right? Like when you launch a fishing show, like Louisiana Catch and Cook, my natural thought is that everybody's going to want to watch this. Every brand is going to want to participate in this, right? And so I think one thing I've learned is that's not always true. You know, like I might think it's the best thing ever, but you know, maybe a brand, it just doesn't align with them for whatever reason, right? So that, I think that's a lesson. Another lesson that I might have learned, you say, over the past 20 years, I think it's something that when I ran sales teams, I think looking at your team's attitude and activity is more, and focusing on that and the process of selling is more important than focusing on the results. I guess you've probably heard coaches say, you know, play the game like you're not looking at the scoreboard.
Right.
From a sales perspective, it's the same way. You're not always gonna get deals. And so, you know, a lot of times that can be frustrating or downright depressing. But yeah, attitude, activity, process, I think would be something that I've learned over the years. It's more important to focus on that than the end result at any given time. Third one, man, I'm digging deep here. Third lesson that I've learned. Is that what the question is?
Yeah.
Third lesson that I've learned. I would say, I'm still learning this, is having the proper boundaries in place.
Yeah.
When it comes to business.
That's the
I like
hardest
to
one.
achieve and I like to succeed. And in my world, that means more sales, more money, right? That's how you measure that. But if you let that be the only metric that you're looking at when it comes to measuring your success or your self-worth, you're in trouble. And so, you know, trying to have priorities that include your faith and your family, and not really measuring your success just based off of career and what you're able to accomplish there, I think is probably the biggest lesson I've learned over 20 years. Having chased some things that didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to, only to leave you feeling really kind of sad, you know, when you put all your stock in that one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Man, we're about to
That was good.
might get deep there. Yeah.
What is something you love about Baton Rouge?
I've already said crawfish, probably 5 times. But I would say one of the things that I love about Baton Rouge is that it has, you have the opportunity to be a big fish in a small pond. Whereas when I lived in Atlanta, that I was not a big fish. I wasn't a medium. I might have been a minnow. And I'm not claiming to be a big fish in Baton Rouge either.
Right.
But I feel like you have the ability to connect with more people that can make a difference in a place like Baton Rouge. I do feel like as a city, we need to find those people and we need to get together and have an Abita or a cup of community coffee and kind of push Baton Rouge in a direction, you know, that we can all be proud of.
Right.
And I do think that the city is poised to have a really good opportunity to do that here within the next, 4 to 8 years. But we certainly, I think from a city of Baton Rouge perspective, have some work to do in terms of who we are and who we want to be.
Yeah, we have the ability. It's just a matter of getting people in the room now.
That's it.
How can we better everybody's life?
That's it. That's it.
So for the final question, what can I do to help you?
What can you do to help me? I would say the more people that could tune in to Louisiana Catch and Cook, I think the better. If you're like me, you like to share that Louisiana experience with your friends and family. So I would just ask that folks share the link to the show. We'll be judged on the number of viewers that we have. right, on Mossy Oak's YouTube channel.
Right.
And so the higher that number goes, the easier my life is. So I don't know, what can we do now to make something go viral?
Yeah.
You know, like, do you have any ideas?
I don't know.
I can't do a backflip anymore. So
Dang, I was really banking on that.
Otherwise,
I was
maybe.
banking on that backflip.
yeah.
Maybe we just like have you just jump into the chair and we can just we'll
we
crop
could use it.
Yeah.
We could use the magic of television.
Yeah. We'll just AI it. You know?
Yeah. What about you? What can I do to help you?
You're in the business to help me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what we need. We need people to keep this show going.
Nice.
To fuel the lifeblood and the accounts to pay the bills.
Yeah, I like that. Everybody needs some. Everybody needs it. And so maybe you should give your sponsors a shout out. I know you usually do that within some point in the show.
Yeah,
right?
so we do it. We insert them into the show.
Well, let's give them a little
throughout.
bonus right
Okay.
now, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Sure.
Who sponsors the show?
So we have Fly Real Estate sponsors the show.
Okay.
They sponsor the studio. They give us a space to work and do what we need. And Lake Men's Health Center is also another sponsor of the show that
Nice.
gives us a reminder to stay healthy, stay active, and also talk to your doctor, or at least get a doctor.
Yeah, that's important.
And then we have Genteel Apparel, which gives us the clothing we need to perform our business.
Nice. See, look at that. That's added value. It's what we call added value.
Added value.
in the business. And every sponsor loves it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, man, for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here. Got a couple of hats in there from the Louisiana Charter Boat Association, and maybe a few koozies that you can slide onto your Abita beer.
Go catching, man.
Go catching.
I love that.
In Louisiana, we don't go fishing. We go catching. That's it.
I love that phrase.
You got it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in, whatever platform you're consuming us on. We'll be back here next week for another episode of the Patty G Show. And in the meantime, y'all have a good one.